Find your forte.
Live your forte.
And love your forte.
That room, subconsciously, you're aware that 500,000 people are going to watch this. That's a lot of fucking people.
Yeah, that's a lot of numbers.
That's a lot of blood clot people. And not only that, you're in the room, you're talking about something controversial. You're having to defend your points. And you know very well that when this is done, you're going to have to defend it some more. The conversation just doesn't start and end in the kitchen. Once that is aired, it starts all over again.
Yeah.
You relive it all over again. And naturally, like, for example, when we was doing it before it was put out, everyone was doing their thing. I remember when we recorded after the first episode came out and we saw the numbers, the producer was like, nah. You lot are not doing what you was doing before because you know people are watching it, kind of thing. You lot have toned it down. You need to bring it back. That's why it got so many views, because it was raw. So it went from raw, shit, everyone's watching. Let me figure out what I want to do now. Let me figure out how I want to be seen now. To, okay, this is how I want to be seen. Let me heighten it. Do you know what I mean? Let me establish myself as this person. And it's not that that's not true to who they are, but that aspect of them is so concentrated, it seems too much.
Yeah.
Where those traits are genuine, but in that room, it's magnified, it's heightened. Do you know what I mean? Because there's no one in that room that I would say is like, you know, fake or whatever. But that's just such a specific aspect. And it's such a controversial aspect that when you see it, it seems so much more significant than maybe it is. Like, for example, Esther. I see that when I watch the episodes, I get it. Like, I 100% see what other people see. Esther has such a good heart. Like, honestly. Like, as much as she's a bit mad, she can get a bit heated and a bit turned up. Like, she's a good woman. And she works hard.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Do you know what I mean? She's a hard worker. Yeah. She's a good woman. She has a kind heart. Outside of that room, majority of people don't, when we're face to face and having conversations, that shit comes up. But when we're having similar conversations, we'll continue our conversations off camera. The conversations don't look like that. They don't look like what they are on camera. It's really weird. I wish I could explain it, but it's not the same.
No,
like,
I get it.
The conversations that you see Lucas having.
Yeah.
I've never had a conversation or seen Lucas had a conversation outside of that room where he's like that. But obviously in the room it's intense. You've got an hour. We know it's timed. We're all trying to get our opinion across. We all know we have to let other people speak. But then when other people speak, you want to get your word in. Do you know what I mean? It's different. Whereas when you're having an actual conversation, you're not really concerned. You're going to let them talk for as long as they want to talk. Do you know what I'm saying? Because you've got time.
Yeah.
But in that room you got an hour and everyone needs to get their 2 pence in. At the end of the day, as much as it's a show and we're being ourselves, we want to eat off the back of it. So everyone's got to do what they've got to do. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think sometimes that's the point that gets missed sometimes, in the sense that as much as this is a show, everyone wants someone to be quote unquote authentic and original and themselves, and they think that everyone should, like, if everyone was in that position, they wouldn't play up for the camera.
Yeah.
But naturally you do. You know,
it's not even, I swear to God, as much as it may be playing up, it's not
No,
conscious, it's not as calculated.
It's subconscious,
People think it's
though.
very calculated and it's
Yeah.
not. Don't get me wrong, there's something in your subconscious that wires when you're in front of the camera, but you're not necessarily standing there with a strategy.
No, of course. But then how much do you think from what is recorded raw to how the producers and the editors chop it up?
Editing is a motherfucker. And Andy is a bastard. And I hope he hears this, bruv. Seriously, he's a wizard, man. Like, I remember one trailer, that trailer about rape. He edited what I said and everyone was going at me, you're disgusting. Afterwards, everyone was like, oh, my bad. Like, you know, the trailer looked a bit mad. I was like, I told you. But yeah, like the way he edited it was mad. Like, it was mad. It was mad. And I understand what don't get me wrong, I understood why everyone perceived it like that. And the thing is, especially with the viewers as well, they'll watch a 30-second trailer and they won't say to themselves, rah, that looks mad. Let me wait to see what that was about. It's rah, that looks mad, fucking bitch. I swear I want to burn it. Like, it's mad. Like, they go from 0 to 100 really quick. And they don't really think about the fact that, okay, cool, this is probably way out of context.
Yeah, no,
do you know what I mean? So it gets a bit tight.
No, I think for me sometimes it's a case where when I look at the editing of it and I look at the formula, the formula reminds me very much of the kind of traits you'd see in like Love and Hip Hop. The traits you'll see in a lot of these reality TV shows. And I think Andy's sister, I think he went Brunel, to my knowledge, or I might be mistaken.
Which one, Diana?
No, Andy went to Brunel, right? I think one of them went to Brunel. One of the producers went to Brunel. But knowing his history in terms of doing like film and TV studies and this, you can see that this was a very calculated
Andy
decision.
knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's sick. He knows what he's doing.
And seeing all those kind of formulas come into play, me watching it from the very little I've watched it, if I'm brutally honest, because I just can't get into it. And seeing what I've seen, you can see that this is done with a very strong intention to be provocative.
Yeah, 100%.
And touching on Samuel's point I made earlier in terms of like, it could be a good platform to talk about very important issues. Is there anything that you wish was discussed on there as the platform it is? Or do you think like this is what people want to hear and this is what they're going to get? Or do you think that this could be an opportunity to like bring more quote unquote topics that impact the community or the culture? Or
It could have gone either way. I don't really feel like one is necessarily more. I don't feel one is necessarily better than the other, and it really does. And at the end of the day, as much as people want to talk about, you know, back chat should talk about this, back chat should be more serious. The viewers dictate to a degree what we're putting out, because the views that this last episode has been mad. Because this season has been relatively like civil. People that have had issues in the past, they're getting along. I mean, I haven't watched it, but obviously I still chat to people, and I'm like, I can see the dynamic.
there's still a support in the grand scheme of things.
So, and then obviously all this Wahala started, and because since this season, for me, for the people I follow, I have a few people that I follow who are really supportive of Backchat, like have been from the beginning, and it's like they're so just so supportive. They genuinely like are invested in the show and want to see its progression and see it do well. And like, but bar those few people, I haven't really seen people talking about Backchat the way that they used to before. This week, even me. Everyone was chatting about Backchat. Even me, I said, yeah, you know what? Yeah, the game is the game, bruv. Like, seriously, everyone was talking about Backchat again. So obviously, you don't like the Wahala. And then when you do talk about someone serious, it's like, you're not qualified.
Yeah.
Okay, then. let's just sit and blink at the camera for an hour. Do you know, and you know, and the point is, you're never going to please everyone. And that applies to everything in life, which I've learned. Backchat has really taught me that lesson. Like, you're never going to please everyone. You never.
Was that a conflict that you faced where you tried to please everyone? Or have you just always...
It's not so much that I try to please everyone as much as I don't like offending people. Some people don't give a shit. Do you know what I mean? So it's not that I do things in order to try and please everyone. But when I do offend people, it does leave me it leaves me feeling a proper way. But I'm working through that.
How did you feel about the whole feminist part? Because there was a lot of criticism of you in terms of the whole feminist topic and how you were considered a feminist or not by some quarters of people. How did you take that? Because I think that sometimes plays to something that is very personal to you, being a woman. Do you know what I mean?
For me, the whole feminist thing, I'd never really considered feminism, just period. Like, it's not something that I had really had much conversations about. It's not something that anyone around me had ever kind of mentioned. Like, it's not like I was told by, I don't know, relatives, like older people. Like, it's just not a conversation or a dialogue that I'd ever had. So in my head, a feminist was something very specific.
Yeah.
It wasn't this, if you support women's rights, you're a feminist. Like, I wasn't a feminist to me.
Was it stereotypical in some way?
A feminist to me was, one, an activist.
Okay.
You know, you have like, you know how you would refer to someone as like a philanthropist?
Yeah.
That's someone who actively goes out and gives to charity. It's not someone who believes that all children in Africa should have clean water. That's not a philanthropist. You believe in philanthropy to help those people, but do you know what I mean? To me, that's what it was. You're an activist. You're out on the front lines. You actively work to make change in that specific area, and your efforts are targeted to that specific area. And to me, that's what a feminist was. And also in this social media age, like feminism, I never really seen it spoken about much other than on social media. And in my head, the feminism that I saw, I was like, oh, well, I'm not really like, that I don't really concern myself with those kind of aspects. I'm not a feminist, I guess. Like, you know, the hair and stuff, and there's just a lot of stuff that was going on, and I was just like, to me, that's a feminist. You're a feminist. I don't do that. I'm not a feminist. Like, I wasn't a feminist. And the thing is, the reason why that was a bit mad though is because I actually didn't say anything even remotely derogatory about feminism. I literally said I don't identify as a feminist, and it came in thick and fast. And then when I tried to explain, I was just digging a hole, and I was like, you know what, let me just leave it alone, because I'm obviously getting misconstrued here. And I remember I'd done a podcast with these girls from America, and they were speaking about it and stuff, and I was like, and you just speak. It's a dialogue that I had more after that, and I spoke about it, because it weighed on me heavy a lot, because I was thinking, what is like, why go on for this backlash? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
And you come to terms with it and you're like, all right, cool, yeah, I'm a feminist. Like, man didn't know, you get me? Like, shit. And it is what it is. But like, if by definition that's what it is, then cool, yeah, I'm a feminist. Like, I never was like actively rejecting it because I thought
You just didn't
feminism.
understand it.
Like, for me, it was just kind of like, from what I knew feminism was, I wasn't a feminist. And another reason as well, which really was for me, people would be like, you know, you're a feminist. And in my head, I'm like, but you'll be, you know, you'll sit alongside your white counterparts. You'll go on these things with these white women and they're feminists, but then they look at you and you're kind of like, but they're still racist. So in my head, I was like, feminists ain't really, I don't really feel like feminism should naturally bring all women together regardless of that stuff. But I didn't feel like it did. And then obviously you find out, black feminism is like a whole nother thing.
Intersectionality.
Yeah, intersectionality. And in my head, like, that's stuff that I had never delved into before. Do you know what I mean? So to be honest, like, and as much as like, I'm like, shit, like that was a lot. I don't know how else I would have found myself to be educated on that had it not happened like that. I don't know for what other avenue I would have had those discussions.
Yeah.
And you live and you learn, do you know what I mean? It is what it is. And I still to this day don't go around screaming from the rooftops, I'm a feminist, like it's not, but at the end of the day, like by definition, that's what I am. Do you get me? Like it's not even a thing that I'm trying to reject. But it's not like I'm gonna now be going like feminism, like, oh my God, like that's me, like tattoo it on like my underboob or something. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not that, but at the end of the day, now I know. Do you know what I mean? So
I think that's just what it is sometimes, and it shows a great sense of maturity to say that, you know what, like from a very volatile situation, you was able to learn something from it. Some people use that as a way to kind of validate how they feel not to be for it. Like even with the whole feminism thing, and I think with many ideologies, like sometimes people subscribe to this kind of like consensual idea of what an ideology is. Now, granted, there is an academic, you know, understanding of what feminism is or any other ism, do you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, how you apply it to your personal life. So, for example, with myself, there's all this, you know, talk about like patriarchy and this, that, the other. And as soon as like nowadays, I think like where we're kind of getting into that kind of thought crisis, as I like to call it, is that when a man does say something that is problematic, in the same sense that you went through this kind of period of, I said I'm not, like I don't identify as a feminist, and you then end up getting this backlash. If a man says something that he's not somewhat been privy to, or kind of trying, just kind of says a thought, and he's very much still open-minded to, you know, learn otherwise, as soon as he says that problematic thought, that's it. He's being chastised.
Yeah.
You're a misogynistic pig.
That's the
you
internet.
patriarchal bastard, this, that, and the other. And it's like, yo, like, don't come at me with this bad mind energy because my tongue is sharp. And if my tongue is sharp, trust me, there's destruction at the tip of this tongue. So if you want to give it to me that way, I can throw it right back. And I think sometimes we've lost that room for reasonability.
100%.
Where now it's like extremity and extremity, where we don't have that space now to
I always
actually
scream
say
about
stuff.
people finding the happy medium. Like, there's always a happy medium. Can we just try and find it?
And I
That's
think
it.
that happy medium shouldn't even be like sometimes when people think the happy medium is like a passive medium, where like no,
yeah.
sometimes if you do have a problematic thought and it's with someone who is of that realm. So for example, an example that I always refer to is I would say that at some point in my life I was homophobic. You know, I didn't understand, or I had thoughts, I had opinions about homosexuality which weren't, if I look at it in retrospect, weren't the most healthy.
I reckon a majority of heterosexual people.
Do you know what I'm saying? And it's like, it only was for me until I had a colleague of mine who was gay. But he was very like forthcoming. I remember the first shift I had with him, he was like, by the way, I'm gay. And I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do with this information? But at the same time, he was open enough for me to go, you know what? We was having a lot of conversations on that shift, and he was open enough on a personal space to say, for me to say, when did you discover, you know, your sexuality, or what was it like being younger and having people not accept your sexuality and things like that. Me just kind of probing and asking questions, and he was very allowing of me to say things that another person may be very sensitive about. But from that, I was able to get a lot of his truth, but I was able to get a much more healthier understanding of what it was. And you could say that homosexuality is not something you need to understand, you just accept it.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And I was like, that's a fair point as well. However, when you've grown up in an environment where all you've been told is something is wrong, the only time you're going to know if it's acceptable and right is if you have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
Or if you're put in an environment where you are able to have that dialogue. In the same way, you're a teacher at school. If a student got something wrong and you reprimanded him, he's going to be like, oh, crap, I'm not going to say something again because
Yeah.
if I say something again, she's just going to shout at me. And sometimes I think that's the kind of crisis we're in right now. Some people say stupid things, don't get me wrong. Some people just are bone idle and dumb. But the fact we haven't kind of left that space for dialogue, we haven't left the space for problematic
you know what it
thoughts.
is? It's because everyone tries to have these conversations on the internet.
Yeah.
There's plenty of places you can go and have these conversations, but everyone is hell-bent on fucking having them on Twitter. That's why.
I think that's what it boils down to.
That's really what it is.
Yeah.
And that's why I've stopped doing that. I've stopped. I used to be in all that, and I was like, this is long.
But then
This
I
is
think
hella
sometimes, like, I think even Twitter in itself, I've learned a lot from Twitter.
Not gonna lie to you, yeah.
I've learned a lot from it.
I ain't learned that much from Twitter.
You don't think you have? I've learned a lot.
Nah.
I think
Nah.
I don't take in the sense what everybody says is factual, but
I've gained a wider perspective from Twitter.
Yeah. It's still learning nonetheless. Because you're never going to be exposed to that many people.
But at the same time, I feel like what Twitter has made me do is be more introspective. Does that make sense?
Yep,
And in that sense,
definitely.
I've learned more.
Definitely. Learning yourself is a very important aspect in its own right of learning other people. I think for me, it was, if you think about it, say for example, you're following 600 people, right? Say for argument's sake, 20% of those are active on the timeline at any one given moment, right?
Yeah.
So that's like, what, 120 people? That's 120
Quick
people.
maths.
Quick maths, real quick maths. 120 people every second, every minute that you're seeing their personality, their thoughts, their opinions
Bruh, listen.
in one instance.
I need to tell you something right now. There was a point where I was like, I need to get a grip. It was fucking with me. Like, knowing what everyone is thinking all the time is mad, you know?
Very mad.
Because imagine you could have read people's mind. That's slightly a little bit what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you're not knowing their truest, deepest thoughts. But I would spend so much time on Twitter and my spirit was just in a next place. It was just in a next place. And I was just like, I need to do something because you don't even realise. Because everyone else is on Twitter, you feel like it's calm. It's not like you're on Twitter chatting to yourself. Everyone's on Twitter and you're on Twitter, so it's calm. This is what you do, innit? You be on Twitter. And I had to be like, do you know what? Be honest with yourself. Some people are good. I'm not built for that. I don't do well with confrontation. I don't like being in sticky situations. Like I don't like that. Like I don't mind getting passionate about shit. I don't mind getting heated. But the minute I feel like I've really offended someone or someone has misinterpreted what I've said, it stresses me out. And I was like, that's not the place for you to be doing it anymore. And I had to really like be real with myself and be like, listen, as much as it would have been nice for you to be able to share your opinions, especially because you're so well received and like, you know, you have a bit of influence. I was like, that's not the place for you. Literally knowing what, like you said, 120 people all day, every day. It's mad. It's very mad. And because social media is so natural now. Exactly. Yeah. And because social media is just such a part of our daily life, like it's such an integral part of our lives now, we don't realise how mad it is. Like I don't think we realise how mad it is.
And that's what it comes down to. And I think particularly in terms of like, you know, within our generation, I'll put our generation into like a 5-year bracket. Yeah. So 5 years from our age and around that age, right? So we're the median, 2-3 years behind us, 2-3 years above us, right? We're the first generation that went from the transition.
We had the biggest transition with that stuff because we went from
non-social media,
VCR and having to rewind your tape when you can watch it go backwards to literally being able to put whatever you want on the internet HD in a second.
That's it. And not only that, just even the access to people.
Other people, yeah.
Where most times out of 10, like nowadays when I look at situations, I'm like, before, my reality was based around the people I had in my proximity.
Was immediately in front of you, yeah.
Like family, friends, strangers, colleagues. That was my proximity of who I could base my reality around.
Yeah.
Now, I could know what someone in Brixton is doing or what the South London mentality is like. Before, like, me being a North Londoner, the South London mentality was a myth, a fable. It was like, you know, folklore. Like, you know, unless you went south a lot, you just kind of spoke of it in like, if it was an urban myth. Now you really know what a South London man is thinking or a South London girl is thinking, unless you link South London girls, which I'm not going to go into because that's just a whole lot of madness. But like